So let's talk about some random stats and see how they stack up. What's up? This is Ed. It's Friday, the 11th of October, 2024. We've got a week of interesting things happening in the real estate market. And for most people that I'm talking to, it starts like, somebody's asking me, what's going on in real estate, or how are things looking for real estate? And the easiest way to kind of sum that up is this is one of those markets that we've not seen before. Interest rates dipped a few weeks ago. They've since come back up a little bit, but when they did dip, it really sparked a lot of optimism in the marketplace. And in a time when historically this is the slow season, we start getting slower and slower and slower to the end of the year overall, in the grand scheme of things for most product. And this was a time when it was actually continuing to the demand was still staying super strong, even though we've had an increase of, call it 10% of houses added, active inventory added to the market within the last 2 months. So it's really been picking up, right? Like we're getting more inventory added to the market, but this drop in interest rates increased buyer activity, which was very, very optimistic. Buyer activity increased by almost 14% over where we were at this time last year. And again, most of the years, when you trend what's happened over the last few years, in this graph you'll see on our website, you see it starts to trend down right now. The demand, contract ratios, it trends down. So this big spike of active listings, you'd think that it would be the opposite, but fortunately, with the interest rates dropping like they did, it did increase buyer activity and buyer demand. So good news there. When you look at the market overall, if you're sitting from the standpoint of an investor and you're saying, what should I do right now in this market? When it comes to selling, most of the 17, call it cities that we have in Phoenix, they are leaning more towards the buy side of things. Only 5 of them picked up in the last week to increase to a more of a buyer or in a seller's favor. Those 5 were Surprise, Tempe, Cave Creek, Fountain Hills, and Glendale. Everywhere else is leaning more to the favor of buyers, or at least headed that direction. So again, with Cromford, they basically will give you this 100 as their baseline. Above 100 is seller market, less than 100 is a buyer market. And right now we have a lot more that are heading down towards the 100 or are under it. So for that, I think that we're definitely waiting again for interest rates to adjust, and I think in this particular situation to get a little more consistent. Whereas the jobs report and the different economic indicators that we have yet to see are leaning people to feel that the economy is still stronger than we thought it was. So let's see what happens with interest rates. Hopeful that they continue to go down. In addition, the rental market, we saw from Capstone's side of things, we saw more applications here last month than it was the second highest month for applications, which is interesting because as interest rates go down, you'd expect that people would be more on the side of getting in front of lenders and figuring out how they can qualify for homes. And at this time, this is usually not the busy season for applications, but it was for us. So that's a good thing. All other things being the same, that's an interesting indicator to say, hey, wait, what's going on with the rental side of things? Article came out like 6 months ago and talked about how Phoenix was down 9% year over year for rents. And we were leading the charge in the country from where rents were. And again, we soared, right? We skyrocketed. But then things are stabilizing, and now it seems like they're pretty stable. We're not doing a lot of price reductions. We're seeing things staying on the market a little bit less time than we were just a few months ago, and slightly optimistic when it comes to the rentals. And I imagine that leaning into next year, it's only going to get better as we continue to work through which buyers need to be out looking for homes, which need to be locking up leases longer. There's going to be more conversations that we need to have around that to ensure that your property is being kept and fits in line with what your goals are. So as you know your goals better and you are figuring out what you really want to see from your properties, let us know. I had an interesting relationship with Dave Ramsey and what I thought of Dave Ramsey and his thoughts for a long time. And, you know, I personally have a particular discipline that never quite subscribed to Dave Ramsey's thinking. I listened to him on the radio. I loved hearing about, you know, people using this debt snowball and, you know, being debt free, like doing their whole cheer. Like, I thought that was super cool, but it was never really for me because it just didn't speak to me as much. However, a couple of key points. I listened to Libby. I don't know. So I'm an Audible dude. Like I am always listening to books, but if I don't want to pay for something, like Libby is that jam where, you know, basically you rent it from the library, and when it's available, it pings and you're like, oh, cool, I got time for that. So I listened to one recently and talks about basically the 7 stages. And, you know, I couldn't quite relate to a few of the stages. However, a couple of them, I thought, you know what, this is something that I really need to be talking to clients about a little bit more, because when we talk about an exit strategy and we talk about what that looks like moving forward, there is this threshold of what do you pay off first? What do you pay off next? When you've got things that are leveraged, what needs to be paid off or what doesn't? And what do you need to maybe kick the can down the road, or should you really be thinking about to make sure that your future self, or even just a few years down the road, is better taken care of with the decisions that we're making today? So I thought that was somewhat interesting. I thought I would share it. Yeah, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I hope you have an amazing weekend. This weekend is going to be a little bit cooler here, but next week's going to be a whole lot better. And dang it, we need it, and so do a lot of people across the country right now with the change in this weather. So see what happens. Thanks for watching.